Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. Always Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. I think Hemang Mati, it's your turn, I think, right, today to read.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, please
Hare
go ahead.
Krishna. Sure,
Hare
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Today we are reading Canto 5, Chapter 5, verse 25 to 35. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudire Nastyaprayesu Avatresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike. Text 25. I am fully opulent, almighty, and superior to Lord Brahma and Indra, the king of the heavenly planets. I am also the bestower of all happiness obtained in the heavenly kingdom and by liberation. Nonetheless, the Brahmanas do not seek material comforts from me. They are very pure and do not want to possess anything. They simply engage in my devotional service. What is the need of their asking for material benefits from anyone else? My dear son, you should not envy any living entity, but he moving or non-moving. Knowing that I am situated in them, you should offer respect to all of them at every moment. In this way, you offer respect to me. The true activity of the sense organ, mind, sight, words, and all the knowledge gathering and working senses is to engage fully in my service. Unless his senses are thus engaged, a living entity cannot think of getting out of the great entanglement of material existence, which is exactly like Yamara's stringent rope. Text 28. Sukadeva Goswami said, thus the great well-wisher of everyone, the Supreme Lord Rishabdev, instructed his own son. Although they were perfectly educated and cultured, he instructed them just to set an example of how a father should instruct his son before retiring from family life. Sannyasi who are no longer bound by primitive activity and who have taken to devotional service after all their material desire have been vanquished. Also learn by this instruction. Lord Rishabdeva instructed his son 100 sons, of whom the eldest Bharata was a very advanced devotee and a follower of Vaishnavas. In order to rule the whole world, the Lord enthroned his eldest son on the royal seat. Thereafter, although still at home, Lord Rishabdev lived like a madman, naked and with disheveled hair. Then the Lord took the sacrificial fire within himself, and he left Brahmavrata to, to tour the whole world. After accepting the feature of Avadhuta, a great saintly person without material cares, Lord Rishabdeva passed through human society like a blind, deaf, and dumb man, an idle stone, a ghost, or a madman. Although people called his such names, he remained silent and did not speak to anyone. Text 30. Rishabdeva began to tour through cities, villages, mines, countryside, valleys, gardens, military camps, cowpens, the homes of government, transient hotels, hill forests, and hermitages. Wherever he traveled, all bad elements surrounded him, just as flies surrounded the body of the elephant coming from a forest. He was always being threatened, beaten, urinated upon, and spat up. Sometimes people threw stones, stools, and dust at him, and sometimes people passed foul air before him. Thus, people called him many bad names and gave him a great deal of trouble, but he did not care about this, or for he understood that the body is simply meant for such an end. He was situated on the spiritual platform and being in his spiritual glory. He did not care for all this material insult. In other words, he completely understood that matter and spirit are separate, and he had no bodily conception. Thus, without being angry at anyone, he walked through the whole world alone. Text 31. Lord Rishabh's hands, feet, and chest were very long. His shoulder, face, and limbs are all very delicate and symmetrically proportioned. His mouth was beautifully decorated with his natural smile, and he appeared all the more lovely with his reddish eyes spread wide like the petals of a newly grown lotus flower covered with dew in the early morning. The iris of eyes were so pleasing that they removed all the troubles of everyone who saw him. His forehead, ears, neck, nose, and all his other features were very beautiful. His gentle smile always made his face beautiful, so much so that he even attracted the hearts of married women. It was as though they had been prized by arrows of Cupid. About his head was an abundance of curly, matted brown hair. His hair was disheveled because his body was dirty and not taken care of. He appeared as if he were haunted by a ghost. When Lord Rishabdeva saw that the general populace was very antagonistic to his execution of mystic yoga, he accepted the behavior of a python in order to counteract their opposition. Thus, he stayed in one place and lay down. While laying down, he ate and drank, and he passed the stool and urine and rolled in it. Indeed, he smeared his whole body with his own stool and urine so that opposing element might not come and disturb him. Because Lord Rishabdeva remained in that condition, the public did not disturb him, but no bad aroma emanated from his stool and urine. Quite the contrary, his stool, the urine were so aromatic that they filled 80 miles of the countryside with a pleasant fragrance. In this way, Lord Rishabdeva followed the behavior of cows, deer, and crows. Sometimes he moved or walked, and sometimes he sat down in one place. Sometimes he lay down, behaving exactly like cows, deers, and crows. In that way, he ate, drank, passed stool and urine, and cheated the people in this way. Text 35, O King Parikshit, just to show all the yogis the mystic process, the Lord Rishabdeva, the plenary expansion of Lord Krishna, performed wonderful activities. Actually, he was the master of liberation and was fully absorbed in transcendental bliss, which increased a thousandfold. Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, is the original source of Lord Rishabdeva. There is no difference in their constitution, and consequently, Lord Rishabdeva awakened the loving symptom of crying, laughing, and shivering. He was always absorbed in transcendental love. Due to this, all mystic power automatically approached him, such the ability to travel in outer space at the speed of mind, to appear and disappear, to enter the bodies of others, and to see things far, far away. Although he could do all this, he did not exercise these powers. Thank you, Haribo.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hemangi Mataji. Hare Krishna. We'll offer brief prayers and start. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chekshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatadesitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktabunda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're in like the cream of the first six chapters of the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where we discussed earlier, from the context perspective, we are hearing the dynasty of Swayambhu Manu. So in the third canto, we heard about the dynasty of Devhuti, one of the daughters of Swayambhu Manu. And in the fourth canto, first chapter onwards, we heard a little bit about Akuti and Prasuti's dynasty, the other two daughters of Swayambhu Manu. And then rest of the fourth canto, we heard about Uttanapada's dynasty, one of the sons of uh, Swayambhu Manu. Actually, is the younger son of Swayambhu Manu. Now, in the fifth canto, we're hearing the dynasty of first part of the fifth canto, up to 15 chapters, we're going to hear about the dynasty of the elder son of Swayambhu Manu, Priyavrata Maharaj. So that way, Swayambhu Manu dynasty is described uh, till the 15th chapter of the fifth canto, all the way starting in the third canto itself. So this topic, out of the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, is called as Visarga. That means spreading of population, generating of population, like that. That's what this topic is called. That's what we're hearing. And in fifth canto, we are in the fifth chapter now. Like I said, it is a wonderful chapter. So before this, we heard about Priyavrata Maharaj glories. How Priyavrata Maharaj was already a pure devotee, being instructed by Narada Muni, and he was practicing devotional life in forest. But on the instruction of Brahma and his father Swayambhu Manu, he came back and ruled the kingdom and responsibly, and then left the kingdom at the end and practiced devotional life again for perfection, like that. After that, we heard about his elder son Agnidhara. What did he do, like that, in the second chapter? Primarily, we heard that he was attracted to karma kandas and he went back to Pitraloka, we heard. And then in the third chapter, we heard about Agnidhara's elder son, which is who is Nabi, like that. And in the fourth chapter, we heard about Lord Rishabdev, who was the son of King Nabi. And we heard Lord Rishabdev is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is coming here. So we heard some of the characteristics of Rishabdev in the fourth chapter, especially his having 100 sons also we discussed. And out of the 100 sons, the elder one was Bharat Maharaj, who later became Bharat Maharaj. His name is Bharata. So now, in the fifth chapter, what we are hearing is Lord Rishabdev came to a place called Brahmavarta. And then at that place, there are not only his sons assembled, but also great sages and saintly personalities are also assembled. So, including sannyasis is described in the section today, actually. So, that means his instructions are so wonderful, not just applicable for his sons only. They were applicable for great sannyasis who left the all the other duties also, were completely attached to Supreme Lord, were completely dedicated to Supreme Lord, were completely surrendered to Supreme Lord. Even for them, it were applicable. So that is the teachings we are hearing. And in this fifth chapter, which is the essence of this whole six chapters, we heard in the beginning of the chapter how the importance of the human life, and especially we get happiness in this body by senses, sensual happiness. Even animals can get it, so we can also get it. What is the big deal in getting pursuing sensual happiness only? Instead, we should pursue Brahma Saukyam, spiritual happiness, like that he was describing. That is the beginning of this chapter. And then he started to describe how sense gratification leads to bondage. So overall essence of the instructions so far can be summarized simply as utilize the important human life, rare human life that we have to pursue spiritual perfection in our life, number one. And number two, to help others in pursuing spiritual perfection. That is the essence of the whole instructions he gave. And towards that, he said, don't get distracted with sense gratification and use your senses to serve Supreme Lord. And then he described how one of the best ways to progress in spiritual life is to serve a Mahat, serve a great saintly personality, like Bharat Maharaj, his eldest son in this case, that will coming up in the next verses. So that is one instruction he gave. And then towards that, he also described how Brahmanas are the best among all gradations of living entities. So we should serve Brahmanas. When we serve Brahmanas, then Supreme Lord is very happy, like that he described. So in the last verse, a couple of verses ago, 23rd verse, that is one of the key verses that is quoted by many. He said, the I means Rishabdev, who is the Supreme Lord. I'm more pleased when food is offered to the mouths of the Brahmanas. So that means more than food is offered in the sacrificial fire, yagna, like that is describing. So that is one thing we need to remember. that Supreme Lord is very pleased when we serve Brahmanas and serve Brahmana Vaishnavas. So, in the last verse, just before this verse for today, he described how Brahmana uh, support my body in this world in the form of Vedas, like that is described. And Chaitanya Prabhu described the 8 qualities of Brahmanas discussed in that section also, which are wonderful. So, as Vaishnavas, we're cultivating Brahmanical qualities. Why? Because they're pleasing to Krishna and because they're favorable to Bhakti. So, some of the qualities we discussed were sense control, mind control, uh, staying in pure goodness, being truthful, being merciful in preaching the essence of scriptures to others, not just keep it to myself. I know a lot, I know a lot, I know a lot, but sharing with others, and then being austere, being tolerant, and they realize the position of Jiva, spirit soul, and also the Supreme Lord Ishvara position also. That's where we ended the section yesterday. Now, in this section, let's go to 25th verse. Ah, who are now, so far he described how Brahmanas are great, and Brahmanas have these great qualities, and Brahmanas are how we need to serve them, how we need to how we can please Supreme Lord by serving Brahmanas like that, right? Now he's going to which kind of Brahmanas? The highest Brahmana Vaishnavas, who are one of the main quality they have is Akinchananam Mai Bhakti Bhajam. That means they don't seek any material comforts from Supreme Lord. That means they're not doing practice of bhakti to become comfortable, to become get more money, to get good health. That's not their purpose in performing devotion service. Such Brahmana Vaishnavas are being referred here like that. Number one. Number two, these Brahmanas are very pure and they don't possess anything. That means materially they don't have any interest in getting this, getting a beautiful car, getting a wonderful big home like that. Like that, materially they don't want to possess things like that. For example, somebody by their past piety, by Krishna's mercy, they might get that car, beautiful building. They might get that. Still, they're not attached to them. The point is not that a devotee should not get a car, devotee should not get a home. That's not the point. Point is they're not materially attached to those possessions. That is the principle. They utilize that car, they utilize that home or any other material possessions for the service of Krishna favorably. If they're hampering the service, then they don't possess it. But if they're helping in their service, they can keep it. So that is the point being mentioned. When they say akinchana or do not possess anything means they don't have attachment to those material things. And then they simply engage in my devotion service. That's the key quality. Such Brahmanas we need to worship. Not the Brahmana just because he has a dress of a Brahmana, is chanting some mantras. Not that. Somebody who's engaged in bhakti towards Supreme Lord nicely, and somebody who does not have any other material desires but simply engaged in bhakti like that. That's what is being described here. Then in the purport, yeah, Prabhupada writes a point in the purport that material opulence and sense gratification through the association of women are more dangerous than poison, he describes. He is quoting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying this. So wanting material things, wanting material enjoyment doesn't go well together with devotion service. So now in the end of the purport, Prabhupada mentions, Brahmanas are always dedicated to Krishna's service with their bodies, words and mind also. That means they're thinking about Krishna. They're serving Krishna with their bodies and senses. And then they're serving with their words also. And then he says, there's no better person than a Brahmana who thus engages himself and dedicates himself to Krishna, the Supreme Lord. So going further, so now so far we heard how Rishidevi told them that you worship me, I am the Supreme Lord, number one. Number two, he said, if you worship, you follow your elder brother Bharata, and worship him and serve him, serving him is not different than serving me also, like that he said. Basically, serving Vaishnavas is equal to service to the Supreme Lord. When? When we see Vaishnavas as a representative of Krishna, when we see Vaishnavas in relation to Krishna, not as independent personality. That is the important principle to remember. Even though our scriptures are glorifying service to Vaishnavas, worship of Vaishnavas so much, we should remember we're serving them in relation to Krishna, not independently. There is an important difference between us Vaishnavas serving Vaishnavas and outside people serving somebody as a God directly. Now going to the next section. Next two verses. Now, so far you remember all the gradations of living entities all the way up to Brahmanas, Rishabdev described and said glorified Brahmanas like anything. Now he's saying not only Brahmanas you respect. Now you understood I need to respect Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. I don't care about anybody. Not like that. He's emphasizing that you should respect all living entities and engage in bhakti. So specifically saying 26th verse, you should not envy any living entity, either moving or non-moving. Non-moving means even plants, trees also. So we should respect them. How do we respect plants and trees? By not unnecessarily plucking leaves, plucking flowers and throwing them on the floor, not like that. By utilizing the resources for service of Krishna. That is how we can respect plants and trees like that. And we can also give them opportunity to grow in their consciousness by offering Charnamritam, for example, like that. So then he says, knowing that I am situated in them, because Supreme Lord is situated in every living entity as a super soul, you should offer respect to all of them at every moment. In this way, you offer respect to me. By offering respect to them, you are offering me. So if you notice, it's not just, okay, everybody is God. That's not what is being told. God is everywhere. God is in the tree. God is in the plant. God is in everybody. So we're all God. That's not what he's saying. And the purport Prabhupada is clarifying nicely that Supreme Lord is staying in them. That means, like how when we go to temple, deity of Supreme Lord is there. Then we when we see temple from outside also we pay obeisances because we understand that's the abode, that's the home of the Supreme Lord. Similarly, when we seeing others, we should understand Krishna is in them, in their heart. So in that sense, we offer respect to them like that. That way, our respects are going towards Supreme Lord also. That is a point Prabhupada clarifies in the purport. So then, yeah. And then another important philosophical point Prabhupada clarifies in the toward the end of the purport, which is also important. He's quoting Padma Purana. So many times Prabhupada makes statements in the purport, they're not independent of Shastra. They're coming from Shastra. Prabhupada is quoting from Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada is quoting from Puranas, Prabhupada is quoting from Upanishads. This is to establish authority towards the statements and give us the proper knowledge from disabstraction, not what I think like that. So Prabhupada Padma Purana, one of the key themes emphasizing here is that just because Krishna is there in everybody, we don't think that everybody is Krishna. And moreover, the soul and super soul are distinct and different. That understanding also is there for a devotee like that. Such a person who sees them different, who does not think that everybody is Krishna themselves, everybody is Brahman, everybody is Supreme Lord themselves. If somebody doesn't see like that, but somebody sees the distinction between soul and the super soul, such a person is very dear to Supreme Lord, like that Padma Purana is saying. So not only such a person is very dear who knows this knowledge that soul and super soul are different, but another person is also very dear to Krishna. Who is that? Who shares this knowledge of soul and super soul being different also. That's the other verse Prabhupada is quoting from Padma Purana. Because we all want to be dear to Supreme Lord, we can follow these things. Now going to 27th verse. So he says, the true activity of the sense organs, that means the sight, words, mind, and all the knowledge acquiring senses and working senses we have. Uh, they should be engaged fully in Krishna's service. He's saying in my service like that. So unless our senses are engaged in Krishna's service, we cannot think of getting out of the great entanglement of Maya, material existence. Like that is concluding here in this section. Basically, all the senses should be engaged in Krishna's service. Only this way we can get out of clutches of Maya. Now, from 20th verses onwards till the end of the chapter is going to be a new section. So let us summarize what we learned from this section so far. What we learned is, Rishabdev described that we should engage in bhakti towards Supreme Lord, and we should serve the Vaishnavas, Brahmana Vaishnavas of exalted character with exalted qualities, specifically who are engaged directly in the service of the Supreme Lord. And then he also mentioned how we need to respect all the living entities, understanding that Krishna is there in each one of them, and offer respects to them, understanding that the respect is going towards the Supreme Lord also. And he said, not only we respect Vaishnavas, not only we respect Brahmanas, not only we respect all living entities, but make sure to engage our senses, mind, and words in Krishna's service in bhakti. That is what we concluded so far. Now, the last section is describing the renunciation example shown by Rishabdev himself towards the end of his life. In this section, he acts like an avaduta. Who's an avaduta? Avaduta is a person who doesn't follow the social conventions, who doesn't follow the varnashrama dharma, like that. Why is he behaving like that? That is an exalted position where they're fully focused on Supreme Lord's service only. In that condition, they're not even interested in preaching the glories of bhakti directly. They just focused on being fully absorbed in Krishna and with undivided attention like that. So that's what is going to be described in this section. So we can still learn certain things from this section, but not to imitate Lord Rishabdev. Like we'll see in the next chapter how imitation leads to problems. But in this case, we should follow the instructions he has given already so far in this chapter. That is the main thing we need to take from this chapter for us. And from this coming section, we need to take the sense of detachment and full focus in devotion service. That's what we can take from this coming up section now. So now going to the 20th verse is described. Actually, even though the teachings he gave them is not just for his children, because children were already highly cultured and highly educated. So then whom is giving these teachings really for? Is giving the teachings for sannyasis who are assembled there, it seems. So that way they can progress in devotion service, number one. And of course, for people like us who are able to read these instructions by the benefit of, by the mercy of acharyas like Srila Prabhupada. So that is one thing mentioned in this verse. And then another thing mentioned is, after he gave the teachings at the Brahmavarta, so then he started to move on from there. What did he do? Before he moved on, he established his elder son, Bharata, as the emperor of the world. And then he left the home, is described. And then what did he do after leaving home? He lived like a madman, naked, and with disheveled hair. Hair also he did not maintain well, it seems. Then the Lord took sacrificial fire within himself and he left Brahmavata to tour the whole world. So he started going around the world basically without any material responsibilities being taken care of. That is the point to be taken here. So as we grow in our age also, we should consider how we can be detached from our material responsibilities and then engage fully in Supreme Lord's service in bhakti. Of course, while we are engaged in family life currently, we should responsibly and fully perform duties nicely with bhakti. But while we practice bhakti to grow bhakti, and while we um, engage our dependence in bhakti also. That's a previous section of this chapter we heard. where when we are in a responsible position with some dependents, it is our responsibility to guide them towards bhakti instead of guiding them towards sense gratification. But then there's a time in life where we should move on to fully focusing on bhakti. So that is the 28th verse. Now, 28th verse is describing after this King Rishabdev now left his kingdom, he accepted the feature of Avaduta. Avaduta Prabhupada describes in the purport, defines it as one who does not care for social conventions, particularly the Varnashrama Dharma. So he passed through human society like a deaf, dumb, dull person, like idle stone, like a madman, like that it seems. We'll hear more about why he did like that. He remained silent and did not speak to anyone. So go into text that is. That's the behavior, external behavior is being described now so far. Internal mood will coming up. So next verse, 30th verse, we are hearing he began to tour through different places, villages, cities, and all the places. And wherever he traveled, bad elements started surrounding him. And then example is given like an elephant when it's coming from the forest, all the flies surround the elephant, it seems. Similarly, some bad people who started surrounding him and started to threaten him, beat him, urinate near him, and then calls him bad names like that. And so now, so they're causing physical inconvenience to body and they're hurting the mind and false ego by giving bad names to him, by cursing him like that. So even though these physical inconveniences and hurting of mind and subtle body and false ego is happening, still he did not bother about them. Why? Because he understood that body is meant to give these things only ultimately. Body will lead us to suffering only, whereas physical suffering or mental suffering due to others. So, and he was situated on the spiritual platform, and that is why he did not care about the material insults. So, the key we are getting from here is when we practice bhakti nicely, when we are in spiritual conception, not in the material conception of this body, then we can also tolerate the material insults easily and continue in our bhakti. So there is a lesson we can learn from here. Sometimes we're just because somebody told one small thing to us, our wife says something, our husband says something, our whole day is gone. We cannot chant properly. We're thinking about that only. I'm not like that. I'm not like that. Why is he saying like that? Why is he saying like that? So all that we can tolerate when we're in a higher spiritual conception. Understand? These will come and go. Is given in this world. We cannot give up that for sure. So when we understand that, we're focused on our bhakti, no matter what somebody may insult us, it's okay. We continue our bhakti nicely like that. So then, because he was in that higher spiritual conception and he was situated in bhakti, he was not even angry at anyone, it seems. So that's another important principle. When we're becoming angry, when we're becoming disturbed by others' actions, we know that I have some more work to do in my spiritual life. I need to grow spiritually some more. Then I will not become angry like this. Then I will not become disturbed by somebody saying something, somebody doing something. Like that, we need to learn. And then that should bring us more sincerity, more seriousness to do Tivra Bhakti in our own life. And then like that is passed everywhere it is described. Prabhupada also quotes Narottam Das Thakur that somebody who fully realizes that material body and world are temporary is not concerned with the pains and pleasures of the body and mind like that. So another point Prabhupada emphasizes in the purport is even though externally it appears that everybody is hurting their body by throwing stones, by putting urine and all that, but is not affected by them because Rishabdev is Supreme Lord himself, his body was transcendental. So that's why he did not suffer any kind of pain from them also, he was describing. So simultaneously, we need to learn two things. One is that he is the Supreme Lord with transcendental body, that's why he is not affected. But from lesson perspective, he is not affected because he is seated in a spiritual platform. Both we need to learn, not because, oh, he's Supreme Lord anyway, he's not disturbed. So I'm not Supreme Lord, so I'll be disturbed. Not like that. So then, so that is the other point Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport. Going to the next verse, 31st verse. So, Lord Rishabdev, transcendental body is so beautiful. That body is being described here. How his hands, feet, and chest are very long. His mouth is beautiful with a gentle smile, and face became attractive because of that. And his eyes were very beautiful, and different features of the body were very beautiful. He was so attractive that even married women were getting attracted to him, it seems. So his hair was curly and matted brown. Um, Even though, at one sense, he was not maintaining his body physically, but still, because he was transcendental, it was appearing beautiful. That is the point Prabhupada is making the short purport. Going to the next verse, 32 verse. So, when Lord Rishabdev saw that everybody is disturbing him in his practice of mystic yoga, Ashtanga yoga, he accepted Ajagara Vritti. What is Ajagara Vritti? Like staying like a python. What is the characteristics of python? Python doesn't go for hunting food everywhere in the forest. It just stays at one place, sits at one place. And if something comes nearby, it opens the mouth and takes it in its sense. So like that, actually this is showing us that we don't have to be so much tension, so much anxiety to maintain ourselves. Somehow we can get maintained for sure. So he's doing, Rishabdev is following that python by staying at one place. He didn't move to get some food. He didn't move to get some money so he can get some luxurious things, items to enjoy. Not like that. He just stayed at one place. In fact, it's described that he was passing stool and urine at the same place also. So this is not something to be imitated, but is showing his exalted position. Basically, the point is that two points are being mentioned here. One is whether we endeavor work too much hard in the physical material life or not, whatever happiness we're meant to get, we'll get it. Whatever distress we're meant to get, we'll get anyway. So some people think I work too much hard, 40 or 80 hours a week, like that, then I get too much money, I can enjoy too much like that. Not really, because by working too much, you're suffering already. So like that, we all need to work a finite amount of time, such an amount of time, so that we can still practice bhakti also, so we can maintain our body and our responsibilities for family also. But not too much also. Not too much means, what is too much? Too much means if you're not getting time to perform our sadhana, if you're not getting time to perform little seva, then that is too much. Then that's what is being described here. And then, yeah, basically he did not want anybody to disturb him, so he was just lying at one place. Instead of going around all the places, then everybody is disturbing. So he stayed at one place itself. Prabhupada writes in next purport how we can perform bhakti by staying at one place only. Yeah, actually in this purport only. We can stay bhakti staying at one place only. We don't have to go to this place, that place, all the places like that. Again, that doesn't mean that we don't have to go to holy places. We can go to holy places for inspiration for sure, but not think that only if I go to holy place I can perform bhakti. When I'm staying at home, I cannot perform bhakti. Not like that. We can perform bhakti at any place. That is the point Prabhupada is stressing. Going to 33rd verse. So, because Lord Rishabdev stayed like this, public did not disturb him, it seems. And remember, we mentioned in the last verse that he's passing stool and urine at the same place. We may think, oh my God, it's dirty, yucky, like that. But because he's transcendental Supreme Lord, even his stool and urine were aromatic for 10 yojanas. That is like 80 miles, it is spreading aroma, it seems. So that itself shows that he's Supreme Lord himself, like that. So 34th verse is described so that he's not disturbed by others. He's acting just like cows, crows, like animals and birds, meaning he's just moving a little bit and sitting at one place like that, not really doing something significant externally, but internally he's observed in his yoga practice, like that is described. So the 35th verse, which is the last verse for today. So when he's practicing like that, he achieved all the yogic siddhis, it seems, from Ashtanga Yoga. Some of the siddhis are mentioned here. What are those? Like they can see what is happening at a remote place, and they can anywhere they can go very fast in the speed of the mind, uh, like that. And one more Ashtik Siddhi also was mentioned. Let me see what is that. Yeah, another thing is he can appear before others and he can disappear. That means he become invisible also. So even though he has all these mystic powers, he did not exhibit them. He didn't make a show. Oh, look, I can get this. I can tell you in Vrindavan this is what is happening now. I can go quickly from now here to the Vrindavan and come back. He's not showing all this mystic powers to everybody to attract attention. Why? Because doesn't have any material desires. His only desire is to please Krishna. So that's why he was not interested in exhibiting the yoga powers to get attraction from others like that. So that is the point being made in the purport also. Yeah, Prabhupada is emphasizing the principle that devotee is anyabhilashta. He's not interested in yogic siddhis. He's only interested in satisfying Supreme Lord and serving Supreme Lord with love for Krishna like that. So that is the point being made here. So that means sometimes we may think, oh, I'm not like that. I don't want mystic powers like that. But these tendencies, gnana tendencies and yogi tendencies are there in us where we want to control everything and everybody in our life. That's how the mystic power, desire for mystic power shows up in our life, for example. And uh, and desire to see things that are happening far away from us is also some kind of desires for mystic powers, basically. So those kind of things are there. But as you grow in bhakti, as long as we focus in bhakti, these tendencies will go away. So we don't need to worry so much, but focus on practicing bhakti and purifying our desire gradually, little by little, to purest desire to only please Krishna. We can pause here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna.